welcome to tonight's episode of the Raise Your Banner podcast. Tonight we have the great Grant Vermeer on. He's the founder of Academy Insider, a former Navy officer. He's going to be talking about his foundation of Academy Insider, which is an organization that guides, serves, and supports midshipmen, future midshipmen, and their families. And we'll probably dive into a bit of leadership and mental health along the way. So stick around, stay tuned, and enjoy the episode.
3, 2, 1, 0.
All right, Grant, great to have you tonight. It's been a long time. I know we were talking before. I think we haven't seen each other since probably 2018. We're going 5-6 years now. Grant and I served in the Navy together, did a lot of great things, met a lot of great people, a lot of good people. We both served with, so got some great stories there. But Grant's going to be talking about a great number of things tonight. Grant, why don't you just introduce yourself a little bit and maybe talk about the Academy Insider a bit too, what it is. What you guys do.
Sweet. Yeah, no, thanks for having me. It's funny, like Josh was saying, I haven't seen him probably since like a Palm eval in 2018. And that was my favorite thing in the world. When I saw Lieutenant Robichaud on there as my evaluator, I was like, thank God, dude. Like, I don't
know if that's a bad thing or a good
thing. No, it was good. You always did your job, right? Like, there's not any kind of discussion on that, but like, it was just, personality wise, you roll the dice sometimes, right? And so knowing that you were on there was always a welcome sight whenever we saw you on.
I appreciate
that.
For
that. I appreciate you having me on here. I actually separated from the Navy January 1st of 2023, so I'm about a year and a half now as a civilian. I graduated from the Naval Academy in 2017. And did my time as a cryptologic officer doing the submarine direct support mission. So time at Fort Meade and then up at NIOD, actually the department head up there of the FES, which was incredible. Really great experience. Really enjoyed my time. I talk a lot about all the amazing things of the Naval Academy and kind of the power of being a junior officer in the fleet when it comes to your life, but also just, again, the adventure of being a junior officer. A lot of people in their life search for mission, for purpose, for fulfillment, right? And that is ready for you to take when you are doing that mission and that job, right? Like every day you went into it, you are doing a really important mission. You are leading teams of sailors. You are entrusted with the care, the morale, the welfare, and just the mission of everything that was going on. And so from that whole perspective, it was just an incredible opportunity. And I think the world of the Naval Academy and the Navy, I think it's a very positive thing that if people do it right and they pour into the experience and they invest in the people that are around them while they're there, it can be a generationally changing opportunity in a really positive fashion. And as a result, I started this nonprofit called Academy Insider. It's a recognized 501c3. It's an educational platform. It's really designed to help guide, serve, and support midshipmen, future midshipmen, and their families at the Naval Academy. And so I've really enjoyed doing that. It's kind of my passion project in a way to give back to the Naval Academy community for my overwhelmingly positive experience that I had there. And it's just something I love doing.
Something I want to hit on real quick because you said it. I think it's really easy. And I did the officer thing a little different, and I was a little older when I started my officer journey. But it is really easy to listen to a lot of the negative stuff. I mean, you know it. You hear it all the time, right? There's always a lot of negativity surrounding certain jobs, surrounding certain things. I finally went to a ship as an officer. This was before we met in Connecticut, but and everybody told me, don't go. It's going to be the most miserable experience of your life. The swells are going to eat you alive, this and that, and this and that. And you know what? It turned out to be one of the best 3 years, maybe the best 3 years of my life. I wouldn't have got to Connecticut if I hadn't gone to the ship.
Sure.
And so it's interesting though, looking back at that and saying like you said, that junior officer journey, it can be often overlooked. I think it can go by super fast. In certain instances, you can be maybe negatively influenced to take certain jobs. But I think you really just have to like take what is given to you, because sometimes you can't control it. But like you said, embrace that journey, because it really is something like, I'm a World War II history buff, and you see all these great stories from World War II. And I think just like looking back on some of that and realizing, oh crap, we did do some good stuff. Look at all these great people we met, like crazy places we went to, a lot we can't talk about, but just like that, those experiences that I don't know, you definitely don't realize they were going to happen, but they definitely happened, and then after the fact, you kind of look back and like, oh wow, those are some interesting times.
Sure. No, absolutely.
And then I guess too,
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. From your, I guess for the audience out there that doesn't know, can you just kind of give me a quick overview of like the Naval Academy, and maybe like how, with the difference between, say, somebody going to college and, a midshipman or something like that?
Sure, absolutely. Well, the Naval Academy is one of the service academies that are supported by the Department of Defense. So you have West Point, which is up in New York, which is, again, the military academy, or the Army's version of their service academy. You have the Air Force Academy out in Colorado Springs. You have the Coast Guard Academy up in New London, Connecticut, which was right there, close to the submarine base. You have the Merchant Marine Academy, and then you also have the Naval Academy. And the Naval Academy is a really interesting thing, because you are all in one at one time. You are an active duty service member. So I think kind of the most confusing thing is that, you hear this term midshipman, and they can kind of consider it like an ROTC cadet, but it's different, because when you are a midshipman at the Naval Academy, you are an active duty service member, and your rank is a midshipman. The midshipman is not just a student title. It is a military rank. It is an active duty military rank. And it's interesting because you're actually, as a result, you're receiving a pay stipend. So you're actually being paid while you're going to the academy. Now, what's funny is, they kind of give you, we joke a lot in the military about like voluntold, or things that are technically voluntary, but they're actually completely required. Like you have to do them. Same thing at the academy. You take out this loan, a career loan, where you pay for your books, you pay for all your uniforms, you do all these things. So your monthly stipend, you don't really see your first 2 years, because it's just going back to pay,
it goes right back in.
Off like all the things that were issued to you, right? Like, yeah, here's all the stuff that's issued to you, but you're actually paying for them, right? And so you have that aspect to it. But with that being said, you're an active duty military member, you're active duty Navy. You get a real, like, your DOD ID card, right? Like that, you receive a CAC, and you are active duty military. At the same time, the Naval Academy is an accredited 4-year university. When you graduate from the Naval Academy, you graduate with a Bachelor's of Science degree. And I think that piece is really interesting too, because even if you're an English major, if you're a history major, you're graduating with a Bachelor of Science degree, which means you're taking physics, you're taking chemistry, you're taking calculus, you're taking thermodynamics, you're taking a ton of science and engineering, just general STEM-based courses, regardless of what your major is. And so it's a difficult school. It's a prestigious school. The acceptance rate in the past couple of years is usually between the 7 to 9% range. For this previous class that just graduated, 14,727 graduates, only about 1,300 received a yes, and then only 1,175 actually said yes and chose to accept their appointment to the academy. Right, 7.9%. And so it's a really prestigious university. It's a prestigious institution, and it's very difficult to get into. And so, I think it's funny, because from my background as someone from Northern California, I didn't even know what the Naval Academy was, right? Like I would have never been able to distinguish between any different Navy rank or school or university, or going ROTC, or enlisting, or going to OCS, or going to the academy. Like, I have no idea as a kid of like what that distinguishing factor is. And so, I think it's important just to get the word out as opportunity and exposure to what the service academies are. And I think as a result of the amazing education, both academically and just education of life, your development as a person and as a young leader, and then the life experiences you get as a midshipman and then as a junior officer in the fleet, I truly believe that the service academies can be a generationally changing opportunity in a really positive fashion for people. And so I love talking about them. I lucked into my ability to go to the academy. And again, I joked, being from the San Francisco Bay Area, we don't really have much of a military presence, and definitely not a Navy presence anymore. And so I didn't know what it was. I actually was a recruited basketball player. And so this is another piece of the Naval Academy is they're a Division I athletics program, right? And so there's a ton of sports, I believe over 30 Division I sports that are played at the Naval Academy. And so I was actually a recruited basketball player. It was a Navy basketball coach who saw me over a summer tournament, came out to my high school at the start of my senior year and was like, hey, we want you to come play basketball at the Naval Academy, right? And so that opened my world to this opportunity. And again, I think that happening, me receiving that offer to come to the Naval Academy was the luckiest thing that's ever happened to me in my life. And then actually saying yes and choosing to go to the academy was the best decision I've ever made in my life. And so, big proponent of the service academies, and I think it's a great opportunity.
I'm sure it felt good too, right? It's like that. It's welcoming, right? It's like, hey, somebody wants me. And I'm sure you were maybe recruited other places too, but it's just that like that kind of like, oh, what is like you said, what is this thing? It's such a prestigious thing, and they want me to come play here. Okay, question for you though is the process still the same? Like if you're recruited, do they still do the similar process of trying to get into the academy, like all the recommendations, things like that?
Yes, and just to be clear, I wasn't a very highly recruited athlete, so it wasn't. It did feel good that someone said that they wanted me. I joke again. Hey, I'm a 6'2" white kid. All right, it's not like Duke in North Carolina were knocking on my door. You know what I mean? And so I was kind of on that Division III, Division I border, and so I ended up with 2 Division I offers. But the Naval Academy just ended up being by far and large like the best life opportunity, which was amazing.
For sure.
But to answer your question, yes, you go through the same process. So I did. They encouraged me. They're like, hey, we will help you through this process, but you need to go through the process. And so I submitted my application both through the admissions side of the Naval Academy, and then you have to receive a congressional nomination, right? And actually receive an appointment to attend the United States Naval Academy. And so I went through that process in California's 16th district with Congresswoman Anna Eshoo. That process includes interviews. It includes physical fitness assessments. It includes all these different aspects sitting in front of a board, right? I remember being a 17-year-old kid heading to Moffett Field, which was an old Navy base, an old Navy P3 base back in the day, but long decommissioned. And I went into the hangar, and there was a board. There was like 7 old graduates who were there. And, they're sitting you down and they're asking you questions. Do you know what you're getting yourself into? Are you prepared to go to war? Right? Like all these different things. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, yeah, I think so. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that sounds like a great opportunity. Right. And so, but it is, even as a recruited athlete, you do have to go through the process just like everyone else. Now, with that being said, there is a small caveat, which is like if you don't get the appointment from your congressional district, let's say you're a recruited football player, recruited basketball player, you don't get the nomination from your district, there are usually leftovers from other districts around the country that don't get utilized. And so the athletic department is able to kind of like say, hey, I'm going to use one of these from North Dakota that didn't get used. And like, this is one of the things that we'll be able to get you in.
That makes sense.
Again, the vast majority of people go through the process like any other student. All of them go through it like any other student. And then the majority just get appointed in the normal fashion, but some are kind of utilized in picks.
That way. So little did you know that, that nice board you had to sit at 17 was going to be the first of many, for the audience out there. The Navy puts the majority of us through all these boards about qualifying this, qualifying that. It's always a very interesting process. But, so for your Academy Insider project, what are some of, I guess, kind of we talked about it before, like you said, it is a college, right? The Academy is a college for one part, but then you have that whole added military aspect of it, which I think, anybody will say, at 18 years old or so, going to college or whatever age for that matter, can be a very stressful thing. But I would say the younger folks, transitioning to a completely different lifestyle at the time, just going to school is can be a pretty daunting thing, and can take a hit on your mental health for sure. But then for something like the academy or a service academy, you throw on the military aspect of it and all the other add-ons that you have to do while you're there
Mhm.
can just make that task even greater. So I guess what for you or for what you've seen, where are there areas you focus on, or areas the program focuses on? For some of those students.
Yeah, so I'll kind of to answer this question, I'll kind of give the origin story of why I started it.
Okay.
And so going back to it was the senior year of my time at the academy. We call it our first class year. You're a midshipman first class. So I was a firstie. It's kind of the term we use. I was a firstie in the spring break, and I went back home to visit my family. And I was sitting with my dad. We go to there's this Jesuit retreat center in Los Altos, California. And I went to a Jesuit high school. My dad went to that same Jesuit high school. We really kind of in tune with the Jesuit community, and
Right.
this idea of being a man for others, right? Like this
Okay.
idea of being of service and being kind and attentive and loving. And so we're sitting up there and we're laughing, right? We're laughing because my dad was like, "I can't believe you made it. I can't believe you made it to this point, dude." Right? Because
That's awesome.
for anyone who doesn't know my story, like I wanted to leave. I talk about all these amazing parts of the Naval Academy and how overwhelmingly positive it was. If you would have asked me that going through plebe summer, like the military boot camp, I would have told you you're crazy. I would have told you are crazy if like about the Naval Academy being a good place. Like I hated it.
Well, I guess that's a
It
question.
was
How many do leave? Do a lot of people leave that first year?
yes, it's gone down dramatically over the past years. There used to be a joke, right? Or I guess every joke's kind of based out of truth. In the olden days, plebe summer, the mission is attrition, right? Like they were trying
Right.
to
Right.
weed people
Gotcha.
out. That's not the
Yep.
case anymore, right?
Okay.
And things have gone in line with the mission of the Naval Academy, and the mission of the Naval Academy is to develop midshipmen now. It's development, right? We are here to develop young men and women, right? And so it's no longer about attrition is the mission. No, we're gonna put pressure on you. We're gonna make this really hard. It's meant to be really hard, but at the same time, the purpose is development. The mission of the Naval Academy is to develop midshipmen mentally, morally, and physically, right? And so that's the goal. We're here to develop. We're here to transform young men and women into officers who are ready to lead sailors and Marines in the fleet, right? And so
That makes sense.
But usually now, kind of a joke, about 1,175 came in one of the most recent classes. Usually we graduate just under 1,100, kind of between 1,000 and 1,100, right? And so you're generally expecting 1,000 to 1,100 new officers in the Navy and Marine Corps every year graduating from the Navy.
Gotcha.
And so anyway, I was not a fan. It was a large culture shock for me. It was an awakening to a different way of life. A life again. I lived a really privileged life. I lived a really good life. My life was really comfortable. Right. I worked hard. I did well in school. I was a good athlete, and I pushed myself in those arenas. But I had never faced real adversity. Not even sort of. You know what I mean? And so it was the first awakening and the first like real smack in the face and like realization of humility, like, holy smokes, like, this is hard. And so
still there.
So anyway, I almost left on multiple occasions. If it wasn't for the intervention and general kindness and curiosity of some important people in my Naval Academy journey, I probably would have left. But I didn't. And, I stayed through it and I loved it. And so going through the Naval Academy journey then, kind of like you were talking about, which is that it's a really hard institution. School's hard. And then you tack on the fact that you have military obligations and duties that you have to attune to. And if you're an athlete, you also have to compete at a Division I level. And the coaches aren't military staff.
I didn't even think of that part.
They're Division I coaches. They're just trying to win. Like their livelihood depends on winning. You know what I mean? And so, so you take this tough academic institution, you tack on the military piece, and then you tack on the fact you're trying to compete as a Division I athlete or a club athlete or whatever club or activity you're a part of. It's a lot of time and it's really difficult, right? And so because of that, I did a really poor job of communicating to my family. I did not do a good job of explaining how I was feeling, what was going on, what all the stuff I was going through meant. they had no idea what was going on in my life, and it made it near impossible for them to support me. How are you
So
supposed
I
to
mean, you
support
basically
me?
did what the majority of people probably do, right? They don't say anything.
They don't say anything. They don't talk to their
Right.
family, and like whenever their family calls them and they ask a question like, "Oh, hey, I saw there was this going on. What's that mean?" Like it just turns to immediate
It's fine.
frustration because you're like, I don't have 10 minutes to explain to you like what that means, right? And
Right.
so parents are put in a tough spot because they're like, they want to be engaged, they want to be curious, they want to understand what's going on in your life, but anytime you ask a question, it's frustration inducing because you just don't have the time to explain it, right? And so it can cause a lot of tension, and then your family can become another stress factor for you because they're annoyed because
Right.
you're not communicating with them, right? And so there was this whole thing where the stress that comes from the academy and the time commitment associated with everything can put a burden on the relationship between a midshipman and their family. It's what happened to me. And so as we're sitting up at the Jesuit Retreat Center, he's asking me, what do you regret most about your time at the academy? What do you wish you would have done differently? Right. And my answer with zero question or hesitation was, I wish I would have communicated with you guys better. Like I realized I put you in a really hard spot of how to support me because you didn't understand what I was going through. You didn't understand what kind of mental state I was in. You just knew that I was like stressed. You know what I mean? It was hard to engage with me because you weren't sure how I was going to react. And so I took that upon myself then in that conversation, with my dad. It's like, all right, well, how do we make this better for the next wave of midshipmen that are coming through the academy? And so, during my time at the academy, I started to buy into it. I really enjoyed it and was like learning the lessons. And I ended up becoming what we call the regimental commander of Plebe Summer. It doesn't really mean anything. It was just during the Plebe Summer evolution, like I was the highest ranking midshipman. And so I got to see how Plebe Summer operated from a very high level. My commissioned officer counterpart was the officer in charge of Plebe Summer. The 05, right? He's a commander. He's running the Plebe Summer evolution for the commandant of midshipmen. And this is a very senior officer in the Navy. I get to see it all. I get to see it all. And so I knew I had this unique insight and perspective based on my journey as someone who hated it, and then ended up getting to see how everything worked. And I was like, I knew I had an ability to make a positive impact on people's lives and hopefully kind of better some relationships by just bridging a knowledge gap, by bridging an understanding gap. And so that's what I was like, all right, I want to create this platform, which eventually ended up as Academy Insider. By just being like, I want to help provide my insight and my perspective in a way that will help family members better understand what their loved one is going through and better know how they can support them. And so that was the mission, that was the vision. That's what I was going for. And so I started by writing a couple blogs, and then I started by, making a couple of videos, and then I did some Facebook Live videos and was like, hey, if your son or daughter is going through Plebe Summer right now, come on this live session and I'll explain to you like what it all means, right? When you get a letter home that was talking about, hey, we were in gray space and I'm standing on a bulkhead and I'm getting yelled at for this and I stick out my paw and they're like, what the heck does that mean? I don't know what that means, right? And so, I would sit there and I would explain like, oh, hey, so gray space is this time where there's nothing else going on. They don't have a planned evolution, right? They're not running the O course. They're not running the E course. They're not a part of this big Naval Academy sanctioned training. They're just with their detailers. They're with the detailer staff in this time. And there's a lot of things that they can be doing. It's generally an extra military instruction period, right? And so you're able to kind of explain, hey, this is what that means. A bulkhead is just a wall. When you're out in Bancroft Hall in the military boot camp, you have to, if you're standing out in the hallway, you have to be what we call on the bulkhead, which is like standing against the wall, right? And so again, it's just taking the time to like help explain what some of this stuff means. So that way, when they receive letters, when they receive a phone call, they are able to understand what's going on. And so without having to put that burden on the midshipmen to explain it, right? And so, that's how it started. And I've loved getting to do it. It's developed since then. I'm trying to continue to adapt and evolve and continue to add value as people move through the experience. But at its core, it's an educational platform that's really designed to help educate family members and take the burden off of midshipmen to explain what's going on in their world. So
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So how does it work now? Do people reach out to you? Are you posting, like you said before, are you posting stuff on all social media and then do some live streams and have, Q&As, or how does it kind of work from that end?
yeah, again, it originally started off like Facebook Live is what I call the OG. It's the OG of
Right.
Academy Insider. Since then, I'm only one guy, right? When it was 50 parents that wanted to know what was going on, it was very easy for me to kind of just run everything myself and kind of answer things individually. The community's grown really large, right? Which is something that I never expected to happen, but I'm really
That's
grateful
awesome.
for. And so we have to you have to adapt. And I still do my best to take individual questions. And I would encourage
Mhm.
anyone listening to ask me an individual question. I'd love to answer it for you. But we've also shifted to kind of mainstream platforms, right? We have the
Right.
Academy Insider podcast, which you can find on any major podcast provider. We do YouTube videos. Facebook is still our main community. And so, we post a lot on Facebook. And then we have our website, and we just are kind of producing a lot of media to hopefully answer a lot of frequently asked questions, as well as bring on other recent graduates and other graduates of the Naval Academy to share their experiences, to get as many perspectives as possible about the holistic approach of the Naval Academy. Because my experience is only one experience.
Right, exactly.
There are a lot of ways you can go through the academy. There are a lot of tangents. There are a lot of break-off paths. There are a lot of emotions. There's so many things that you can experience. And my experience won't resonate with everyone, right? And so kind of what I've tried to do now is really bring in a community of Naval Academy graduates willing to share their experiences and give their insight and input. So that way we can create a more holistic approach to, all of the different things that could happen, and hopefully find someone for you that you resonate with, or, relate to in your experience, in your process. And so that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I think I love it. I really do. I think a big thing that while it does happen in the military, I do think there's a group in the military that maybe don't support it as much or just don't do it. It's kind of that giving back piece, and like I know you tried to do it when you were in the service, and you're obviously doing it now. I'm kind of in the same boat. I was always under the mindset of like, hey, how can you make things better? But how can you make it easier for the person? Maybe not easier might not be the right word, but how can you help develop that person below you, or develop those folks that work for you, or make it easier for them? They shouldn't have to do it as hard as you did. Things like that. And you kind of hit on something that I really liked at the beginning when you talked about your first year, and had kind of had some mentors there and some guides that really helped you out. And I think, at least for me in the military, I got lucky where I had a good group, kind of a core group of friends that we all came up in the Navy together. We met when we were in Maine. And then at the same time, I was lucky where I had leaders and other mentors throughout my career that I could fall back on. And at the same time, I tried to do the same for others. And I think it's easy to say it. The military has these mentorship programs and things like that, and it's easy for leaders to say, "Oh yeah, let me do this, let me do that." I have an open door policy. Come in whenever. It's easy to say all that, but whether you're actually doing it or not, that's the other question. And I think it's a huge piece to helping with the mental health crisis we do have in the military, things like that. I just think that guidance and compassion and being there for your fellow members is a huge thing. I mean, and that translates into the private sector too. And I just for me, it's a huge part of it is that being that mentor, being that guide, just being that extra ear for somebody to listen to some vent their problems. I had numerous people used to call me the camp counselor, which at first in my younger years I was like, what the hell? I don't want that name on me. But I kind of realized, like, as much as I sometimes took other people's problems on, I realized the benefit of that for other people, and I thought it was an interesting thing. And then I had my own camp counselors that I turned to. So I just think that guidance piece that you bring up is such an important thing, and obviously what you're doing here is a big piece of that too. So.
I appreciate it. Yeah, and just to touch on what you were talking about, which was funny because you even caught yourself. It's like, it's not necessarily about making it easier. The term that I like to use is It's just making it better, right?
Better.
Better
That's
doesn't
good. Yeah.
necessarily mean easier, right? And so I think that's kind of the biggest takeaway, because the Naval Academy is a really hard place, and the experience is hard, and it's meant to be hard. And I think one of these amazing things about the Naval Academy specifically, as we talk about everything that you just mentioned, is the density of senior leaders, both senior enlisted leaders and senior commissioned officer leaders that are on what we call the yard,
Right.
which is on campus, because it is going to be hard. You are going to face storms. Like, you are going to
Right.
have to deal with adversity, with difficult situations, with complex human dynamics, with failure, a lot of times for the first time in your life. And the Naval Academy experience is not about stuff getting easier. What I love
Right.
about the Naval Academy is it teaches you how to handle hard better. That is what it's all about. Because again, if you continue to pursue a life that is meaningful, that has mission and purpose, it's never going to be easy. That is
Right.
the biggest thing. If we wait for things to get easier, they're not going to get easier. We just need to get better at dealing and handling hard situations. And
Sure.
so what makes the Naval Academy so great, in my opinion, is you have so many mentors whose sole purpose it is at the Naval Academy is to teach, coach, and mentor these young men and women on their journeys. And when you're going through those difficult situations, when you're sailing through those storms, you don't know what to do. And so to have those mentors be able to guide you and help you navigate those paths and navigate what you're feeling and how to deal with these situations, those are the kind of things that help you get ready to attack the next difficult situation. Because when you get out to the fleet, we talk about this, life is going to be harder than it was at the academy.
It sure
and it
is.
was hard
Yeah.
at the academy. But being in the fleet is harder, right? And so again, it's not about getting through the academy and it becomes easier. No, when you make it through the academy, you've just gotten a lot better at doing hard things. And you're
Sure.
ready to kind of attack the next hard challenge. The level of tenacity it gives you, the level of resilience that you get by understanding that, like, I'm not waiting for life to get easier. I'm just going to train myself to be ready to do hard things, right?
Right.
I believe this wholeheartedly, that work ethic, that tenacity, that resilience is a muscle that needs to be trained. It is something
sure.
you need to consistently do, because that's how you get used to handling these things and working through it, right? And so that's why I love the academy, and that's what it taught me so much about. Was, again, I was ready to run away for the first time I faced adversity. I just wanted to get away from it, right? I wanted to chase back to that feeling of comfort. And I think what makes this so special, and having mentors to help you guide and navigate these things for the first time, is, again, it just gives you that resilience, because it's hard and it's meant to be hard. But doing hard things just prepares you to kind of face the next thing in your life that's going to be even harder, right? And so
I guess if you're talking to the person in the audience right now that's Grant Vermeer back in that first year of ready to call it a day, or any year for that matter, what kind of advice would you be giving them right now?
Yeah. The number one thing, the best piece of advice I ever got in my life as a result of this, and now it resonates with me now that I have perspective. Never make a permanent decision based on temporary emotion, right? Had I decided to leave the Naval Academy because I was just upset, because I was flustered, because I was annoyed, because I was frustrated, I would have thrown away all of the amazing life experiences that I had as a result of going to the Naval Academy and being an officer in the Navy.
Yeah.
Right. And
I like it. Yeah.
To me, that was the thing that just resonated the most. If you can just make it one more moment, push to the next moment where you're not thinking emotionally, but thinking rationally, then you're able to put yourself in a good decision to actually make important decisions in your life. But I would just encourage people, again, is just never make a permanent decision based on temporary emotion. Make it to the next phase where you've settled down, where you've weathered that storm, and that you're able to think with a clear mind before you make an important decision.
And I guess, secondly, another one for you. What about that 18-year-old, 17, 18-year-old kid that's on the fence about going to the academy or West Point for that matter, or any of the
Mhm.
service academies, I guess, what would you tell them? Would you tell them, I don't know, what would you tell them to bring
Yeah.
them over the hump, or advice wise?
Yeah. Um, I again, this is my general theme. This is why I love the academy, and I think this resonates for all service academies. But obviously, I'm going to make my answer specific to the Naval Academy. It's that I truly believe that going to a service academy and investing in that experience is a generationally changing opportunity. It is not a 4-year decision. It is not just a college decision. It is a 40-year decision. Attending a service academy is one of the best decisions you can make in your life for the right kind of person. Again, it's not for
Right.
everyone, but I do believe if you have an interest in it, if you like it, again, this is an incredible opportunity. And there's kind of 3 main reasons I think about it for. And that's the power of being a midshipman, which I'll kind of talk about in a sec. The adventure that you get to live as being a junior officer in the fleet. And then just the influence of the Naval Academy network, which is what a lot
Right.
of people just don't even realize as well. And if you make a decision to go to the academy, we've kind of touched on the power of being a midshipman, which in my opinion really embodies itself in the form of all of those senior leaders and mentors at the academy who are there to guide you, to teach you, and to support you as you're navigating adversity, difficulty, and hard situations for the first time, right? Like that is incredible. The life lessons that you learn, again, we joke, we call the Naval Academy a leadership laboratory. And it's not because they're teaching you leadership in a classroom, right? We do also do that. You go through leadership theory, you go through all these things.
Right.
But the leadership you're learning, the leadership laboratory is because you are navigating these complex situations and you are learning how to deal with hard better. Day in and day out, the Naval Academy is hard. And that is going to make you a better person. It's going to make you a better leader. And it's going to rapidly transform your growing up process. Right. And
For
so
sure.
if you're a young man or woman who wants to grow up, who wants to become successful, who wants to become just the best form of themselves, you do that by going to a service academy because you are going to learn how to deal with hard better. And so that is the power of being a midshipman, in my opinion. And then after that, again, once you graduate, now you get to embrace the adventures of being a junior officer. I mean, you
Right.
talk about of all the college decisions that you can make, if you can go to a place where you are guaranteed upon graduation, where you are going to receive not only a job, but a career, a real career, a career that's going to give you mission, that's going to give you purpose, that's going to give you life
Right.
fulfillment, that's going to surround you with people around a common goal, a common, again, operational mission that you need to get done. Again, that's incredible. It's going to give you opportunities to travel the world, right? For me, it was Norway, it was Guam, it was Scotland. I got to see all these crazy places. I got to re-enlist sailors from mountain peaks surrounding Norwegian fjords, right? Like, how cool is that? I mean, talk about
Right.
once in a time life experiences. It's incredible, right? It's incredible. And then you talk about the fact that your job, your life is going to give you purpose. It's going to give you fulfillment, right? I look back on people in my class, 2017 alone, the class of 2017 from the United States Naval Academy. We have pilots who shot down or sunk a Houthi rebel boat, right? Quite
Right.
literally. You have junior
Right.
officers who launched missiles from the USS John Warner into Syria to destroy chemical weapon facilities, right?
Right.
You have service warfare officers who are sailing through the Straits of Taiwan day in and day out to counter, Chinese aggression and
Right.
expansion in the area. It's incredible. You have Marines who
Right.
helped the evacuation of Afghanistan. You have Marines who are on the DMZ between North and South Korea, ready to respond on a moment's notice. You have people who are legitimately contributing to national defense objectives and national security objectives. And they're doing all this while leading, developing, coaching young sailors and Marines from every single inch of our country, right? And again, you talk about this ability to make a positive impact individually on a small scale on the sailors and Marines in your area, but also on the biggest scale in terms of like global security. You get purpose, you get fulfillment in your
sure.
life by choosing this path. And then the last thing is the Naval Academy network is powerful, man. The Naval Academy
I know
network
you guys have a
is
good network. So.
powerful. It's unbelievable, right? And I think it's based on this foundation of everyone knows you made it through the Naval Academy experience. There is a common baseline. There was a common experience. There is a common, like, I know this person has true resiliency and
Yeah,
true
there's like a
grit.
trust factor, right? Yeah.
There's a trust factor, right? And so, you have this unbelievable network that doesn't end when you take your uniform off, right? When you are ready, when that time comes, whether it's 5 years or 25 years of service, when that uniform comes off, this network is going to take care of you if you choose to invest into it, right? It's not going to find you if you shy away from it. But if you pour into it, you invest into it, and you capitalize on it, there are going to be people in every single industry that you could possibly transition to that are ready to take care of you and ready to help you out. And so, again, when we talk about it being a 40-year decision, it's going to take care of you. It's going to give you the opportunity to achieve financial freedom. It's going to give you the opportunity to create generational wealth if you choose to, combine it with prudent decision making. But again, you are going to become part of this network that is bonded by our common experiences, bonded by that mission, bonded by that purpose, bonded by this desire to live a fulfilling life of service and goodness. And you do those things, you're going to get taken care of forever. And so,
it's funny that you say the network thing, because, for the audience out there, I'm a non-Naval Academy officer. But the funny thing is, I've had the pleasure of the Academy network working for me a number of times. And, whether it's, reach out to Grant for something, and then he reaches out to another one of his classmates or something along those lines, and it comes back to you. So it's funny, that network is huge. And, it's an awesome tool to leverage. So
yeah, no, without a doubt, man, without a doubt. So again, that's what I would tell, right? That's what I would tell high school kids, and it's tough because sometimes it's hard as a young person to fully comprehend everything that I just said. But if I could boil it down, right, it's you're going to get an elite education, not only academically, but an education in life, in leadership.
Sure.
You're going to grow up rapidly. You're going to receive a great career, a great paying career with zero debt to start off, right? Like, you can go to the academy, take out your career starter loan going into your junior year, and leave with a net. You contribute. Again, I'm not a financial advisor, so take this with a grain of salt. You should do your own research. Let's say you take out the career starter loan. Again, we're midshipmen. We're active duty. We're receiving pay. So you can open up a Roth IRA and max out your Roth IRA as a 19-year-old. And then go and do it again as a 20-year-old in your senior year or whatever it is. And then you go and you're entering into the fleet where you're, depending on where you're stationed, as an 01, you can make close to $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
Right. And so you're entering a life as a 22-year-old. You can be walking out of your college experience with like a $20,000 net worth, positive, in the positive, right? And jump into this job that you're going to be able to make like $100,000 a year. Again, when we talk about, like, if I'm just speaking now to the rational brain of certain people, like you talk about the ability to create true generational wealth, the ability to
not bound by
generate wealth,
debt, right?
Not even sort of, right? And so, I mean, incredible. And then you just talk about the fact that you're going to be taken care of for your life. You're going to have the ability to pivot into whatever industry that you want after this. And you're going to be able to live a life of purpose and mission and fulfillment. Genuinely. And it's going to suck at times, right? I want to be very clear and also transparent, right? Like, when I talk about mission, purpose, and fulfillment, that's a type 2 feeling. That's a feeling you feel underneath it all. That's a feeling that, like, you go to bed at night and you're like I'm proud of what I'm doing, right? It doesn't mean you're going to be happy. And it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It's going to be the opposite, right? But as we talked about it, through this conversation, you're going to get a lot better at dealing with hard things. And you're going to put yourself in a spot to make a really positive impact in this world. And as a result of that, again, you're going to have that mission, you're going to have that purpose, and you're going to have real life fulfillment. And you're going to live a really good life with a lot of success if you consider a service academy.
Yeah, I think the one thing that's interesting, just looking back to reflecting on my career a little bit while we're talking, is it's like the life story aspect of it too, right? I mean, I'm not saying not being in the military makes your life story any worse or anything like that. Obviously, we all have these everybody has interesting life stories for the most part. But, I joined the military right out of high school at 18, and, right before 9/11, it was early 2000s. And, obviously found myself in war situations pretty early on in the, 2003 timeframe. But, yeah, I mean, I can look back now 23 years later and I have this very interesting life story now, and none of that would happen had I not done the Navy thing, or even,
Yeah.
between both the enlisted and the officer side. And
Mhm.
I think, like you said, what better way to do or add to your life story than maybe go to a service academy and become an officer, and then even if you just do it for the initial 4 years or
The
whatever,
5.
and kind of get that
Yeah.
experience. It's can't be beat, to be honest. So
100%. Right. So it's the adventure. You get
yep.
adventure. People search their whole life for adventure and fulfillment. You're going to get it. You're going to get
I
it.
mean, even now. So
Right.
it's funny. I'm post retirement, and I sometimes think, oh, I'm missing some of that adventure, missing some of that adrenaline, or missing some of that, or I didn't do this, or I didn't do enough. And then I'll be like, well, wait a minute. I did do all this. I did have a lot of this fun. Maybe it is time to relax a little bit right now. Let me work on these other endeavors
Calm
like the
down now.
podcast and things like that.
Exactly.
But
Uh,
it's just kind of funny,
yeah.
I guess, thinking about it. You know what I mean? But hey, a couple more questions for you. Just I guess out of the since we do like to talk about mental health and leadership is one of the
Hmm.
other things. Just from your time post post academy, while you're an officer and doing the junior officer
Hmm.
thing and things like that. Any just leadership advice, or I know you kind of hit on leadership before, and I think we probably are on the same page where yeah, you can take a million classes on leadership and you get a lot of experiences seeing other people lead and leading people yourself. I don't think there's a magical key to leadership. I think there's you just learn as you go, and you can take the great aspects from some of the great people that put stuff out, and try to
Yeah.
hope for your best and do your best and take care of your people. But any advice just for some of the leaders out there?
Yeah. Again, everyone's going to be able to lead in their own unique form, in their own unique language, and it's really important that you do it that way, because one of the best things you can do as a leader is just be authentic. It's just be who
Yep,
you are,
100%.
right? And
Yep.
not try and force anything or be someone that you're not. So I'll just talk about for me what it was, right? What resonated with me. And it revolves all around this idea of being a man for others, right? And I talk about it. It was the slogan of my high school, Bellarmine College Prep, out in San Jose, California. It's a Jesuit slogan. This idea of being a man for others, right? Trying to live in the true model of Jesus Christ, as Jesus Christ, the human in form, right? And so
Right.
I'm not going to turn this into a religious lesson. It's just going to be like, hey, take a look at like the Jesus Christ who walked on the earth, right? He was kind, he was respectful, he was attentive to people who were cast out by society. He was wise, he was educational. He never, well, not never, but he approached a lot of situations with tact, in just general kindness, right? And so for me, it's like, all right, I want to be a man for others. I want to live a life of service, but service doesn't have to be this grand gesture, right? And I mean this so genuinely is, again, when you're in a position of leadership, I think the best thing you can do is just be a good dude. This is my
Yeah.
California side with dude, but just be a good person, right? Just be a good dude, right? Care, legitimately care about the person who's on your team, right? And I
Right.
think there's this really interesting thing of this idea of humility, right? And C.S. Lewis, in my opinion, has the best definition of humility of all time, which is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less, right? And it's important to have confidence. It's important to be strong. It's important to have presence. It's important to be able to command in this spot of
Right.
leadership. So it's not about like reducing yourself of any sense of ego necessarily, although it's important because you can quickly become arrogant if you're just being, again, not a good dude, right?
Yep.
But you need to be confident, and you need to be competent, right? In all the things that you're doing. But then if you do that and you're not thinking about yourself, but you're generally putting your headspace in a spot of, how are my guys feeling? Do I know what's going on with them? Do I know what they're feeling? Do I know what's kind of holding them down or causing them to feel a certain way? and how can I help them? Whether that's just providing a listening ear, whether that's doing the legwork to get them to the resources that they actually need, whether it's providing a little bit of advice or input or kind of, direct action into their life, whatever the case is, right? But if you can just go and be a man or a woman for others, right? And think of yourself less and think of other people just a little bit more and what they might want or what they might be thinking or what they might be kind of going through in their spot, you're going to put yourself in a lot better spot, right? To be able to go. And so, and then this is going to lead you to a life of fulfillment, right? And I stand by this fact because you're going to build real relationships. You're going to find people who actually respect you and care about you because you legitimately respect them and care about them. Right.
Yeah, it's not just about the rank, right? They're not following you because of the rank. They're following you because of the person you are.
100%. Right. And, again, this isn't like a master class in leadership. I think this is just my input about being a good person. Right. And again, your number one job in my opinion, as a military officer, especially a junior military officer, is just to take care of your people. Right? It's just to take care of them. Be a shield for all the not good stuff. Help them out with all the great stuff. Help them advance. Help them promote. Help them get to the next step. Provide them what they need to do that way. My goal and my mission when I was there is how do I get you paid more? How do I help your life out that way? Right? How can I generally do that? What are we going to do to get you to that next step? Right? What are we going to do to make you a little bit happier, to make your financial situation a little bit better? What are we going to do to get you to the next place? Or if you don't want to get to that next place, then that's great. You want to be a terminal E6? Awesome. You keep doing your job. We'll make your life good. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so, but because it comes down again to just genuinely knowing what that person wants and what their goals are and what their mission is. Right. And so, so yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
No, I totally agree with everything you said. It's just, on one hand, I want to say the rational side of me thinks it's such an easy concept, but it really isn't. But there is, the vulnerability to me is a big thing. I didn't learn that early on, but I at some point that being vulnerable to people, the switch got flipped, and it dawned on me how important that was. And then when I started doing the mental health stuff in Connecticut, that really was all about just me being vulnerable and sharing my story in the position I was in too, which helped. And I think that was a huge thing. And like you said, just being a good, genuine person goes a long way. So for your Academy Insider, where can people find you? What's the website?
Yeah, so you can go to www.academyinsider.com. That's the website. Okay. We're also on Apple Podcasts. Again, your major podcast providers. If you just type in Academy Insider, the full title is the Academy Insider Podcast, your guide to the United States Naval Academy. But if you type in Academy Insider, it should pop up. Too. And then you can also find us on YouTube, Academy Insider. The YouTube channel is just Academy Insider, and then the Facebook group is Academy Insider. And so I would encourage anyone who may be interested in learning a little bit more about the United States Naval Academy to go to Academy Insider, right? And I've really kind of in tandem with, so just a side note is I've also recently become a blue and gold officer, which is basically the Naval Academy's version of an admissions field representative in your home area. And so as a result, again, if there are any people who are listening to this who may have a son, a daughter, a niece, a nephew, some kind of friend or someone they know, a young adult who may be interested or you think may be a good fit for a service academy, I highly encourage you to direct them towards Academy Insider resources. Again, I think the number one thing we can do in order to truly help military, even recruitment, but just general ideas here is just be transparent, right? This is what Academy Insider really is it's a transparent look with a positive spin, because I truly believe it's a very positive experience. Insight into the life at the Naval Academy, genuinely, right? You're going to get a decent look. You're going to hear my stories. You're going to hear about all the times I wanted to leave, all the times I hated it. We're very upfront about the fact that it's really hard. It's really hard, right? And we're not trying to hide that fact. but we also want to be really transparent about all the amazing things that are associated with it, right? And so, again, I would encourage you to share this with anyone who may have any kind of inclination towards, pursuing an appointment at a service academy.
Well, it's just great stuff. Great work, Grant. I appreciate you coming on for that and sharing what you're doing. Part of my goal with this podcast was a to have advocates on for whatever thing they want to advocate about. But, just like interesting people and people that are giving back and people that are doing the right thing, the good thing, and obviously you're doing that. I will say I appreciate the kind words at the beginning, talking about when we got teamed up together. For me, I never sometimes didn't know if I was doing the right thing. And sometimes I was told I was maybe too nonchalant or too nice. But kind of like you said, find your way and go with it. And for me, that worked. Something about you, I always enjoyed when you came up, or if maybe I saw you in Maryland too, I don't remember. But you always had this positivity about you, man. I know you've said the word positive a bunch during this podcast, but I feel like your positivity like really always filled the room. I appreciated, when we worked together, I appreciated your visits up in Connecticut. It was always a fun time. I know we didn't get to work too close together on a lot of things, but I think for what we did work together on, it was always good stuff. And like I said, I can't thank you enough for, I think sometimes you don't realize when people rub off on you in certain situations. And like I said, when you remember people, the one thing I remember about you is you were always positive. So that's really why I wanted to have you on when, I saw all the great stuff you were doing. And I can't thank you enough for being some of that positive effect, having it rub off on me back in the day. Because some of those days in Connecticut for me weren't the greatest, but like I said, it was always good. I can't thank you enough for coming on here and sharing the story. And I hope, hopefully we can work on some stuff together in the future too. Then, like I said, thanks again for coming on. It's been a great episode, and I'm glad we got to share your story.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much. And I genuinely appreciate it, brother. I love what you're doing with this platform. And so thanks for having me be a part of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Raise your banner if you need help, and raise your banner to let others know you're a safe person to turn to. Until next time, stick around and keep on moving forward. Research conducted by Matrixa Research Group. Artwork created by Jenna Bordinger at jbordingerart.com or at jbordinger_art on Instagram. And music by Josiah Renton, DJ Slowbro. Thank you.